Anonymous. Yep.
To call the Selectmen's meeting of November 20th to order. Do you have any reason for non-public?
We do not.
Wonderful.
Yes, we like that
Like
one.
that. All right, consideration of minutes, October 9th.
I have one change on page 5, starting midway down to after Mr. O'Brien. I believe it was Mr. Goodwin who was speaking to us, not Mr. Sullivan, since Mr. Sullivan wasn't even at the meeting. So if all the places you have Mr. Sullivan, just put Timothy Goodwin.
Any others? Motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. October 10th. Don't have those.
I don't either. You want a motion?
Yeah,
I'll second that.
no, I don't.
We have a motion and a second. We have the motion and a second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, October 28th.
Yes, I have on October 28th, let's see what the page number is, page 12. Page 12 at the top. I think what it should read, and it's the first paragraph, Mr. Pinio stated we will get classification on the procedure to use to get funds from the reduce in long-term debt into a capital reserve. I think that makes that clear.
You have a, well done, Linda? Done?
I'm done.
I have a page 3, fourth line down, second sentence, attribution is to me. He would like to be able to explain it, and if not, he can't vote for it. So we just got to put in the word not.
You make a motion to approve as amended?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
October 30th. You'll make a motion to approve?
So move.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. November 5th.
I have a change. Linda, I think this one is attributed to page 7, under D, animal control. There's an attribution to me that says that I said it's a community service. Was that you as well? That
I said Mr. Murray stated it was a service. That's what I said.
yeah, and then well, a couple of lines down, it's attributed to me as it's a community service. Or maybe it's me.
I think, yeah, it could be a community service. It's, you know, we're just opposed to, why would we spend that money?
Fine.
Yeah, okay. I'll make a motion to accept them as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
November 6th.
Yeah, I have one on page 4, and it's the next to last paragraph. It says, Mr. Pinio stated the estimated tax rate for 2019 should be $15.84, which was up from $15.80. And then I believe that the municipal tax portion was $6.09, which is 11 cents increase from 2018. I'm not sure what that, the 679 or the 598, what do you?
I don't have those numbers right in front of me,
Okay.
so if we could table that, I'll get the numbers and have
Yeah.
that clarified.
Okay, we'll have him clarify that.
Yep.
So why don't we just table this one and see how he wants that written.
Page 9, second last paragraph, last sentence. Budget is terribly small. The budget isn't terrible, it's just terribly small. That was attributed to Selectman Murray's work on her project for first night, last night.
Okay, so those are,
We're going to table that one because
Table.
he's going to make sure that it makes sense on the,
okay.
make a motion on that. Make a motion, we table the November 6th minutes.
Okay, next.
Aye.
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 Okay, trying to move this along, but we don't want to. Okay, next on our agenda, public hearings. We have one. First one is temporary event permit, Wolfeboro Rotary Club to hold annual Christmas tree sale fundraiser, starting November 29th, 2019 to December 22nd, 2019, the Clark Museum Barn at 233 South Main Street on Thursdays to Sunday, 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Somebody here from the Rotary? Come on up, Ed. Tell us what's going on. I think we know, but
Ed Gillespie, Wolfeboro Rotary Club. Once again, we're selling Christmas trees as a fundraiser, and the Clark Park property, once again, has allowed us to use that property, as you say, Thursdays through Sundays, afternoons, until I think the middle of December.
okay, thank you.
Any questions? No questions. Thank you.
Nope.
Not yet.
Anybody wants to speak in favor? Anybody opposed? Close the hearing. Somebody like to make a motion?
Make a motion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Ed. You're all set? Next is acceptance of unanticipated funds. Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, November 20th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. The Great Hall, 84 South Main Street, Wolfeboro, New Hampshire. The acceptance of unanticipated funds for an amount greater than $10,000 in accordance with RSA 31:95-B3, small a, to accept unanticipated funds. Friends of Libby Museum in the amount of $50,000 raised from the Eber Foundation. Feasibility study and technical drawings to restore and build a rare addition to the Libby Museum. Somebody here to talk to that?
Hi, I'm Julie Jacobs, and I am the Vice President of Friends of the Libby Museum Incorporated, a 501(c) organization. The Friends are working in partnership with the town of Wolfeboro on the planned restoration of the Libby Museum. Tonight, I am pleased to hand over a check to the Selectmen in the amount of $50,000. These funds were donated by the Bieber Foundation to the Friends for the feasibility study to restore the Libby Museum. These funds supplement those given to the town by Betty Schroth bequest in 2018. The Friends are extremely grateful for the generosity of the Bieber Foundation and their commitment to supporting the preservation of the Libby Museum. Preserving Dr. Libby's rare collections and saving this museum that was given to the town in 1956, which is now the only and oldest natural history museum in the state of New Hampshire, is important for future generations. I present you with this check in the amount of $50,000.
Here's your
Melissa, you gonna do this?
Photo op.
Yep.
Take a picture, okay?
Stick that in the ATM machine.
No, you take, if somebody wants to take a picture.
No, just
Dave, yeah.
come on, Dave.
Want to give him rabbit ears?
Yeah, let's give him some rabbits. Dave's some rabbits.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, the bank's gonna get this.
Look over there, Dave.
You want yours too, David?
Good job.
You want on your phone too?
No, Melissa's my better photographer. Better go in and not use the drive-through and catch this.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion to accept this meeting?
I'll move that the Board of Selectmen accept from the Friends of the Libby Museum the amount of $50,000 from the Bieber Foundation for a feasibility study to restore and build an addition in the rear of the Libby Museum.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Anybody from the audience have anything for or against, or close the hearing?
I'd just like to comment that I am also a member of the Friends of Libby and serve as its president right now, so just for clarity, I want to make sure everybody's aware of that and everything, so.
Thanks, Brad. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? I would hope not. Okay, next on our agenda is weekly manifest, bulk vote, weekly manifest. And that's it on that. Somebody want to make a motion for that?
I move that we accept the bulk vote.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next on our agenda is a board appointment. Doug Smith wants to be appointed to the Energy Committee. We have a vacancy. Doug here, I see you. Just say hello to us and
Hello, I have been an alternate member for most of this past year, and we've got some openings now for full-time members, and I would certainly like to participate at that level. Anyone have any questions?
no, you're probably well aware of it if you've been an alternate, so you know what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
You need to tell them what you do. No, you're a great contributor to the town.
I try. I'm a library trustee. I'm a member at the Boat Museum, and have been doing quite a bit of work over there to help them, too.
It's pretty awesome.
Good. Thank you. Somebody want to make a motion?
I move that we appoint Douglas Smith as a member of the Energy Committee.
Until March 2022?
For what term?
Until March 2022?
To March 2022.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
If I can just make one comment, you need to go to the town clerk and get sworn in. We're having trouble getting all the committee members to do that, so if you would do that, would be, thank you.
Okay, next on our docket, we're going to move up the municipal department. So the MED, the Reggie rebate reimbursement.
Good afternoon. If you recall, this is like a yearly occurrence. We have we get money from Reggie. In order to accept that money, a stipulation is we have to return the money to our ratepayers. And so I'm coming to you tonight with the proposed Reggie rebate credit that we will issue our customers for the months of December, January, and February, based on the calculation that you'll find on the second sheet of my memo. And that rate reduction will be 0.004935 cents per kilowatt hour. Doesn't sound like a lot. It's probably $2.50 to $3 for the average electric bill for the average customer. But if we don't return it, we don't get it. So it just makes sense. So I would ask for your acceptance of that Reggie rebate credit.
Somebody want to make a motion to that effect?
I move that we accept the Reggie rebate credit of .004935 P per kilowatt hour.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
And that'll be, I'm sorry, that would be for the month of December 19 through February 20, right?
Correct. And it will be for meters read during the month of
For
December.
meters read during the month, December 19th through February 20. You all okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Okay, next,
Thanks, Barry.
anything else? Paul, yes or no? Okay, Wolfeboro MED net metering program.
So, as many of you know, and I think a couple of you have sat on the committee, we've been working on a revision to our net metering policy here for a number of months. We've attended many Energy Committee meetings. We've met with many individuals that have a specialty in this type of credit and program. Met with a number of consultants. I think we had some students work with us from Dartmouth. And all of these things were very beneficial in us doing our revision. The three major revisions you'll find in this document compared to the pilot program that we started in 2008. So we had a pilot program for 10 years. We gathered a lot of data. We learned a lot about net metering, its function, how it affected the MED rates, et cetera, how it affected the customers. And based on that pilot, we were able to come up with some proposed changes in this new net metering program. The three major changes in this program are, number one, we are proposing to increase the capacity that we're allowing each individual customer to interconnect with, to change it from the existing 25 kW and bump it up to 100 kW. The second major change is the fact that when we rebate customers, if they have excess generation that they've developed from solar or whatever other alternative source, we will no longer rebate them or credit them the full cost of delivery and generation for electricity. In essence, we're backing out the distribution cost. And the reason for that is really we're buying power right now at a cheaper rate than what we are crediting our customers, our net metered customers, for. And because of that, there really is, it's being subsidized, that additional rebate money is really being subsidized by all ratepayers. So that was something we really wanted to back out of the equation. And so the proposed new rate will not include the credit of the distribution. Those customers aren't necessarily using the distribution, it's just that energy supply that they will be credited. And the third change, really, that besides some few just cleanup in language and specific, specifications, are that at the end of the year, if a customer has a credit, we will actually issue a true-up check at the end of the year versus just continually allowing a credit to roll over into each year and basically last for indefinitely. Some customers, had questioned that and the fact that, well, we always have a credit. We never are able to use all of our credit. And so this is one way we can ensure that whatever they have for a credit, they can take all of that money in the form of a check and they can do whatever they want with it. They can they can improve their system, add to their system. They can use it to pay future electric bills. So I think it gives a little more flexibility to both customers and us, and we'll just start from zero at the beginning of each year. So I think you all have a copy of the draft policy. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any surprises as far as what the Energy Committee, they were given a copy of the draft. They were also highly participatory in the process. And so I would ask for an approval vote of this, unless there's some discussion that would like to be initiated.
No, the only question I would have is, when do you want to implement this?
I'm hoping for January 1st, and we'll start the new year with it. One other thing, there was a question as to if we would grandfather existing customers. And that is another thing that we would not propose to do. And just by grandfathering, I'm going to have people at several different rates throughout the process of this. It really complicates following it. I just think it's the
This application form and stuff that's in here, would everybody have to fill out a new one for the 1st of January?
No, we would just carry, this would just
People that you already have on that meeting would stay?
Yeah, this will just supersede the prior policy and the terms and conditions. I tried to streamline the application a little bit. Instead of signing in 3 different places, we're really just signing in a couple places now, so it wasn't so confusing. But the intent was that this would supersede all, the pilot program, and this would be the policy for all.
I guess the question was, would everybody that has, I assume it's mostly solar, because I don't know of any wind energy that
I
we
have one wind customer that's actually on Pork Hill in our system, but in Ossipee.
It's in Ossipee, yeah.
One of our customers.
Yeah.
The application form hasn't changed whatsoever. It's the same.
But I just was curious as to whether everybody had to fill out a new application.
No, I wouldn't make them require.
Okay.
As a term and condition of our existing policy, if you change anything in your system, you really need to inform us anyway, regardless. So.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I think there is somebody in the audience who might want to speak to this. Are we okay with that?
Yeah.
As a board?
Hello, I'm Doug Smithwood. I'm a Wolfeboro resident. I actually was on the Energy Committee in 2016 when we did the Solarized Wolfeboro program that doubled the amount of solar in the town during that 1 year. And I'd just like to read some comments, and I'd like to give these comments to all of you for the record.
Thanks. Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
So just as an overview, I am opposed to this new net metering policy, and I want to read why that is. The town used about 75,000 kilowatt hours of electricity in 2019. For this, we paid a New Jersey company a little over $3 million to generate the electricity, and we paid another $4.5 million for it to be delivered to our distribution system in this town. All this money was taken out of our economy, out of our town economy. In Wolfeboro, we currently have 322 kilowatts of solar and 1 wind on Pork Hill, as Barry just mentioned, assets owned by ratepayers, which are our citizens. This is the only generation in this town. In a good year, these solar assets produce about 350 megawatt hours of electricity. And just so for reference, that's about 0.47% of our electricity, or 0.5%. Under our current net metering policy, the number of new solar arrays added each year has tapered off significantly. In 2016, and that was the year that we highly promoted it right in this hall, we installed 108 kilowatts of new solar. In the next 2 years, 17 and 18, only an additional 88 kilowatts were added. The trend of adding renewable resources in this town is trending down, and it's trending down sharply with the current net metering policy, the pilot policy. We have a goal in the energy section of our new master plan that states, and I quote, achieve a town-wide goal of 50% renewable resources of electricity in just the next 10 years, which is a very difficult goal. We can exclusively buy this renewable energy from out of town. We can go to Quebec Hydro and buy it from the Canadians. And we'll most likely have to buy it out of state at the very least. And we most likely will pay a premium to do that. Alternatively, we can try to maximize the in-town generation of this renewable energy through a combination of municipal, commercial, and residential renewable energy projects. All these projects will help control our electric rate and keep our energy dollars in our town. If we want renewable energy and we want to make as much of this in our town, then we need a net metering policy that promotes this goal and not stifles it. The new net metering policy will most likely completely eliminate all new residential solar in town. The big driver in solar penetration, that's the amount of solar you have, is the rate, the electric rate. Currently, Eversource has an electric rate of over 18 cents a kilowatt hour. The co-op has an electric rate of over 6.5 cents a kilowatt, and Wolfeboro's electric rate is about 14. We have a great electric rate. This one fact, though, explains why currently, under a much more lucrative net metering policy, we have such low solar penetration. All the regulated utilities, those are the ones that the New Hampshire Public Utility Commission has to answer to. They changed their net metering policy in 2017. Their new rates are currently less than full retail value. This is what Barry's proposing. Eversource currently pays 17.8 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity that's produced in the solar panel to be exported to the grid. The New Hampshire Electric Co-op pays 11.6 cents per kilowatt hour for electricity that's produced by a solar panel that's exported to the grid. Under this new policy, Wolfeboro will pay 10.25 cents per kilowatt. This will be the lowest reimbursement rate in the state. Eversource will pay its solar customers 74% more for their electricity from solar than Wolfeboro under this new rate. Even with this higher rate, Eversource has had a low number of solar installations since the 2017 revised policy, and the amount of new solar in the co-op has almost gone to zero. With this new metering policy that's being proposed today, solar will be dead in Wolfeboro, except for maybe very, very large solar arrays. It's the only way it's going to be economical. I feel that the solution to this is to have a variable net metering policy, which depends on the size of the solar array. What is economical for a 100 kilowatt solar array? And that's a fairly large solar array. That's in the range of 400 solar panels. But what's economical for a 100 kilowatt solar array is completely uneconomical for a 10 kilowatt solar array. The current net metering system that we have, the pilot program, has a one-size-fits-all, 0 to 25, and no change in between there. The new proposed net metering policy also has a one-size-fits-all, but solar's not like that. It's an economy of scale. So you're basically going to exclude everybody but the biggest solar installations in the town. The old policy and the new policy will not help us achieve our renewable energy goals. I've attached on that sheet a framework, and it's just a framework to show you how a variable policy might work out, but it's much more nuanced. Energy is a nuanced subject, and it takes a deep dive into the economics of energy. And I hope you'll consider that before you would ever vote. I wanted to kind of comment on one of Barry's comments. You know, there's a thought, and it's pervasive across the country, and it was promoted by the Koch brothers. They call people that have solar panels on their roof, they call them solar sponges. Because if you look at just the face value of it, when you have solar on your roof and you get full retail value for it, you're not paying into the distribution grid. So the thought is that everyone's paying for your distribution. But that's not really true. It's not true until you have large penetrations of solar. With small penetrations, we only have 1/2 of 1%. Everyone in the town benefits, and there is PUC reports. I have one of them here that I will give to you. That says, it's a 2-year-old report that says that the value to solar to other customers in the state of New Hampshire, and it's tailored to the state of New Hampshire, is over 19 cents a kilowatt hour. And that doesn't take into account all the other things about producing energy. It just takes into account the cost of transmission, which is going up, what has it gone up, 400% in the last 10 years? It takes, and you don't have to do that with solar. It takes into account not having to increase your distribution system if you selectively locate solar arrays within a distribution system. It doesn't take into account the mercury that fossil fuels is putting in our lake, or the smog that we're getting in the White Mountains that are destroying our landscape. It doesn't take into account any of that. There's no value to that under the PUC's report. And even with that, it says that the solar is of value to every retail customer, and that retail customers that have solar on there are not sponges. And I want to make a case of point in that. So it's true that our current net metering rate is completely unfair. The unfairness in it is it's a flat rate structure, where all electricity, whenever it is used, is charged at the same rate. In the middle of the night, electricity is almost worthless, and in the middle of a very hot day, it is hugely expensive. Some really progressive utilities actually allow you to charge your car, which uses a ton of electricity if you have an electric car, for free at night. That's how worthless electricity is at night when solar is not producing. So in the middle of the night, it's almost useless. During a very hot day, it is hugely expensive. The cost of electricity can go from $20 a megawatt hour, it can even go below that, in the middle of a cool evening, to over $1,000 a megawatt hour in the late afternoon during a heat wave. In Wolfeboro, we pay a flat rate where the people using fans to cool themselves are subsidizing those with large central air conditioning. For example, in 2017, we received a notice in our electric bill stating our electric rates were going up 10% because we were being charged $600,000 for our forward capacity payments. Most people don't know what that is. They have no clue what a forward capacity is. This payment, the $600,000 payment just from Wolfeboro, was based on our average energy use for 1 hour of one day in an entire year. Actually, that day was August 12, 2016, between 2 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Those that had air conditioning blazing that hour cost everyone else a lot of money. Those that had solar arrays putting electricity into the grid during those hours saved everyone money. And I actually looked at my solar array, and it was cranking during that hour. It's near peak production, so it benefited everyone. In conclusion, if you are truly worried about fairness and want to minimize rate shifting, where one ratepayer pays for another's electricity usage, you need to go to this thing called a time of use rate. It's mandated in California, where ratepayers that use a large amount of electricity when the cost is very high pay for that usage. That's the conclusion of my remarks. I'm just very opposed to this. I think it's going to kill solar. It's going to kill our ability to produce renewable energy in our town and keep those energy dollars in our town and make us much more energy self-sustaining. So, does anyone have any question on that?
Yeah, I do. You had mentioned the cost of the solar panels being not changing or being more expensive. So it costs more money now to put solar panels in?
No, I didn't. If I said that, I did not mean that at all. The cost of solar has come down about 80% from 2010 to today, although it's gone up because there's a tariff on it, and also there's a tax credit that's expiring next year. So this is particularly untimely to kill solar now, so people can't take advantage of that tax credit.
But you also mentioned that Eversource and New Hampshire Co-op have seen severe dropping in solar arrays being put up. And can you attribute that to any special thing? It doesn't seem to me that the cost differentials are making a lot of difference in that. If they're seeing a severe drop as well as us in the installation of solar panels. So it isn't just here.
So there is a number of reasons that solar penetration has decreased. The biggest driver is the electric rate. When you have a really high rate, and when you look at huge solar penetration, they're from very sunny areas. Like if I had my same solar array in Arizona and it was well situated, I produced twice as much of electricity. Their rate's also hugely high. So that has one thing to do with it. The rate is the primary driver. There's this other thing called a renewable energy credit or certificate that you actually, besides that, you get a payment for producing clean renewable energy that the town has nothing to do with. Barry doesn't even know what I get paid for that. That has gone down from when I installed my solar in 2015. It went down from $49 a megawatt hour. It's now at $7 a megawatt hour. So it's come down precipitously. So you have the combination of the tariff, on solar panels, the decreasing federal tax credit, the decrease in the renewable energy credit, and the decrease in what the retail or the amount that a solar producer is reimbursed. You got all of those coming into play here. But the biggest driver by far is the rate of reimbursement that a person that has solar on their roof is paid for what they put out into the grid, into the distribution system of Wolfeboro.
Okay, but also in your thing you state that there is quite a difference between New Hampshire Co-op and Eversource as far as their rates. $18 and something compared to our $14.
So the co-op's somewhat like Wolfeboro. We can do whatever we want, Wolfeboro. We're a municipal electric department. It's very rare, in the state. There's only 6 of them. If you go to Massachusetts, that's the norm. So in New Hampshire, we have regulated utilities, but we also have a co-op, the rural co-op from the Depression era. Members own the co-op, and they can do what they want. They've actually decided to do the things like to have energy efficiency programs that's available, so they bought into that. We have not, but they can do whatever they want for their reimbursement rate. They never had to allow solar at all. We never had to allow solar either. We don't, we have a complete monopoly in this town with what we do.
The other question.
So they decided it's a very low reimbursement rate. What they did is they put 1.2 megawatt solar in Wolfeboro. They built their own huge renewable energy array so that is an option for people in the co-op service territory, that they can get, renewable energy produced in their community. We don't have any of that here. We have one very small, I don't even know if it's functioning, solar array on a municipal facility. I think it's a wastewater treatment tank. Tiny, 5 kilowatts, whatever it is. So,
does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I will abstain. I do have solar panels, so this will affect me financially.
Could I make one comment? It's my understanding, and there is people here from the Energy Committee, that it's kind of made it sound like this was a unanimously, considered proposal, the new net metering proposal. I think it was a split vote. I think it was a very split vote. And the other part of it, so there's the net metering part, the grandfathering. When people sign a contract for their interconnect, they assume that would be honored into perpetuity. In the state, the PUC, when they allowed that new net metering policy in 2017, they required that every existing solar customer be grandfathered to their existing contracts. If you don't have, if in the future, if I put solar even under the new net metering policy, if for some reason you decide that we're only going to give a nickel a kilowatt hour, there's no certainty. I mean, if you don't abide by a contract when it was done and you revise it to the detriment of people that put out their assets to construct it, then you're not going to get people to ever take a risk because you're not trustworthy to abide by that. And I just wonder if we have a power purchase agreement with a company in New Jersey. What if they all of a sudden just told you they were going to increase their rate? You'd be screaming. No, we have a contract. And to not grandfather people in there, I think is completely wrong, and it has never been done in the state before. Every other utility has honored their existing solar, generators.
Inducement.
Oh,
So let's do a little math. So a $20,000 solar system that I would buy with a 30% investment tax credit yields a $9,000 one-time tax credit. It's going to 26% in 2020, so that's $1,200 that I no longer can capture as a tax credit. That's a $1,200, we'll call that a bad guy. Over the past 10 years, solar panels, or 6 kilowatt, I just kind of Google searched, 6 kilowatt solar panels over the past 10 years have fallen from $51,000 to $17,880. So Moore's Law is working on that side of the equation. So you're getting a heck of a lot more output price performance. You're either getting a reduced price, or you're getting more performance out of the panels. You're getting a heck of a lot more than a $1,200 benefit that this one-time investment tax credit costs. So I kind of got the idea about time of day kind of pricing, but and the last one I have is in the state of New Hampshire, and it might be because of policies, but it also might be because of the way the sun works. Our penetration in the state of New Hampshire for solar is 1%. 1%. That's according to Revision Energy. That they just said something to the state.
It's a half of 1% in this town, so.
Well, whatever. It's 1% in the entire state.
50%.
So they're twice as much as we.
Right.
So and in this town we have 42, 43 total installations. 41, 42, 43.
Numbers in there.
And that's gone from 40 to 43 over the past year? Up three? Okay. Your opening remark is the one I really wanted to get to. Somehow, we're buying power from somebody out in New Jersey or maybe somebody out in, out in Ohio. Why wouldn't we just go out and buy RECs?
That is the way that the co-op initially did it. If you wanted to get into their renewable energy program, they just went out and bought RECs. And so it is. It's what
let me help me with why wouldn't we buy RECs? Because at the end of the day, it seems to me that what we want to do as a country, and I think when I think about energy, I don't think about Wolfeboro. I think about as a country, we want to get our renewable energies up. And if we bought RECs, I think Barry priced them out, they would be 13 cents, 12.5 cents per REC. We currently pay wholesale 10, we go up 2. Somebody has argued that RECs are not legitimate currency. That's not true. You could, state's attorney general in 38 states have said, you can trade them, so they're a legitimate, energy currency. Why wouldn't we just go buy RECs?
It just comes down to the simple thought of, do you want to buy your renewable energy out of state where you're exporting the money and the economics from that out of state, or do you want to promote internal development of renewable energy resources? Having them internally within your own distribution system gives you much more reliability. If the transmission lines go down, or if if they're so highly congested that we can't get the energy we need from the transmission out of the town, if you produce it in the town, you are much more reliable. Places that want really high levels of reliability, like colleges and some towns. Paul, you went down to Sterling with us. You know the answer to this.
Sure.
So they want complete reliability. This is a town the same size as ours, 7,000 people. They have, it's over 2 megawatts of solar in the town. They have battery storage. They can power their hospital, their fire department, their library for days during a power outage. Right. They can do all these things that nobody even knows about: frequency regulation, voltage control. They can pump out electricity into the grid during high peaking times. And they actually paid off their array in 2 years. So that's what happens when you develop the resources in your town.
I got it, and I appreciate it, and I deeply respect your argument. We're 0.47, we're less than 1/2 of 1%.
Yep.
We made a promise to ourselves that we try to cut our 75 million or 74 million, whatever the number is, million kilowatt hours, by 50% over 10 years. That's 3.5 million per year. We ain't even close.
We'd have to
We
have
ain't even
10
close.
times increase in our solar every year for the next 10 years.
I'm kind of and without getting too long into this, what's coming in from our grid, Barry's, we'll congratulate Barry for this. Our grid coming into town on the 390 line is running at 99.994, which means we're down at the 390 line maybe a couple of hours a year. So the reliability issue, I got it, I understand your point, but I'm looking at 99.994. I think we start by adjusting the rate, and I also think we have a conversation on a go-forward basis about buying RECs. That's kind of where I go. Because I think we need to, if we're going to get serious about reducing greenhouse gas emissions, it's an all-in, everybody's got to play. So I'm kind of in the, well, let's go ask our customers if they want to spend another 2 cents and get them to vote, on their bill. And if do, you can buy some RECs. That's what they do down in New England, down, southern part of the state. You can buy RECs on your bill. So I'm kind of keen on supporting what Barry's proposal is at the moment.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment. I do want to clarify something. The Energy Committee talked long and had a lot of discussion on grandfathering. And it was my understanding from being there, the consensus was that we were okay in not grandfathering those who had a previous contract, because there was and Barry can get me a line in there that said that did not promise that this was going to stay, that it was a pilot. So I think the committee did study, and I think Barry took that, and we did a lot of research on this, and this was the general consensus. I don't believe in...
I think I was there too, and I may be wrong. I may be completely wrong, but I think the amount of money that we were talking about was a couple of $1,000.
Yeah.
It was a couple of $1,000 among all of those 41 people.
Yeah.
A couple $1,000. So for the administration of trying to grandperson or father these things for a couple of $1,000, I heard the same thing you did.
Yeah, and we had a lot of people who had solar on their house there,
Yep.
too.
You would be the only utility in the entire state that didn't grandfathers, the only one. So, and then you have a new net metering policy. What if that changes in 5 years, and you decide that all the people that did it over the next 5 years aren't grandfathered, and they're going to have no assurity that you're going to pay them for their, generation what they thought you were going to pay them. And then what if it, 10 years now, you even do another revision? But that was right in the PUC's, they required grandfathering at the time of the interconnect, not just before 2017 when they changed the policy. They required that for every policy going all the way into 2040. So you will be the only utility in the state that doesn't require grandfathering of their current contracts at the time that a new contract comes along.
Yep.
And who's going to take faith in you if you can change, your contract anytime in the future?
But if you sign something that says it's a pilot and that they are reserving the right to change it, you're signing underneath there. It's not like you had no idea this could ever happen and all of a sudden they just come in and yank it out from underneath you. That's what you're saying. That's the difference for me, was that when we signed the contract, we knew that it was a pilot and we knew that it may not stay the way it was.
I actually looked my contract over because some of them, just see legally, is there action legally for this? I mean, you'd have to take legal action that would be cost prohibitive anyways. But, and I was going to ask you to look at the town attorney. And you're right, you probably have the legal capability of doing this. You also in there had, and it wasn't stipulated that it's discretionary, that you were going to be able to keep your kilowatt hours for as long as you owned your meter. They weren't transferable. You sold your house and you had any credits, you would lose those. You're changing that too, which I mean, I don't mind one way or another. Don't know why you're doing it. It doesn't quite make sense to me, but fine if you want to send some people that have, credits a check. But the end product is what you really have to think about. And when you look at this, the tier system does have berries in here. Berries is in here, but this is a variable system. The one-size-fits-all services only one tiny component of what might be available. And that's going to be like the 100 kilowatt ones. It's going to completely exclude residential solar or even small commercial. It's nuanced. It's a nuanced thing. You cannot have a one-size-fits-all. The reason you're revising it in the beginning is because the pilot program didn't fit the library's needs. And then you develop another one-size-fits-all program that doesn't take into account the smaller producer. I really, would like you just to look over the spreadsheet that I did and, thoroughly consider that. I think it is going to be a little more technical than a one-size-fits-all, but you are going to kill solar in this town if you adopt this net metering program, except for very large arrays. It will not happen on residential, and you'll never remember I said this when I do. I told you so. This
You're on TV. We'll remember. You're on YouTube. Thanks.
You can say that I told you so, but you on your own notes and stuff here have said that it's not just here where solar is dropping off. It's dropping off all over the state.
Yeah, and if we kept
Eversource and the co-op.
If we kept our
Severely,
current net
you
metering
said
policy,
severely it's dropping off.
if we kept our current net metering policy, we're not going to have, we have low rates. We're not going to have a lot of solar. If we adopt this new one, it's going to kill it completely. Yeah. So you're right. There's not going to be, if you tell Barry, no, we're not going to go with a new net metering policy, you're not going to see huge adoption in solar in this town. It's a fight. The one thing that would be wonderful to do is, if you were looking at the other way, we did a solarized Wolfeboro. I did a presentation right in here. Some of you were at it. And it was when the federal tax credit was going to go down. And then they extended it. And the federal tax credit is going to go down again next year. If you wanted to look at the other side, not to trying to really wipe out solar, but to promote it in the town, you would, at the very least, keep the current policy or maybe even make it more lucrative, but you would take advantage of a unique opportunity, because after 2020, it's going to go from, it's going to just
26 to 22.
Yeah, it's going to go.
That's another $600.
After 2020, it's just going down a little bit next year, but it's going much more precipitously.
26 to 22.
Following year. So if you wanted to promote solar, now's the time to do it. But if you pass this net metering policy, you're not going to do that. You're going to really kill solar in this town.
Thank you, Doug.
All right, as some of you may remember, over the years, we never had power coming into the city. We generated our own for 100 years. Then all of a sudden, diesel fuel went so high and all the other things. So that's when we put in the 390 line coming in from, and we were buying junk power, which we still do, I guess, from Eversource. So we've been right around the circle here in this town with our own energy, to putting in the 390 line to, and we still have low rates, in my opinion. Okay, there's $4 difference between us and Eversource. That, to me, that's quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, everything's getting more expensive. There's no question. Solar, I don't know if that's the actual answer to everything. When you say 0.5%, to me, that's pretty low. Right. If it was 5% or something like that, I may consider it. But anyway, Barry, you want to?
I just want to elaborate on a couple of things. And really what... Yeah, I know your name. I'm just trying to think what I'm going to say afterwards. Doug elaborated that we have a low rate. And that low rate is holding us back from solar growth. I got to tell you, for me, it's very hard to explain to a lot of people, hey, our percentage is possibly equivalent to Co-op and Eversource. And if you look at the percentage, not the rate, if you look at the percentage of the credit based on what they charge for a static net meter charge, those two customers, if you actually look at the credit, which I did, and ran the rate, we're almost identical. It's almost identical with our new policy as to the percentage of what we rebate customers with the overall rate. I would never change our low rate or increased solar capacity. I just don't think it's feasible. Especially on rooftop mounted solar, we will never ever reach a 50% saturation rate with rooftop solar. And the big thing is demand.
Yeah.
Solar does nothing for the demand. So, anyways, thank you.
Okay.
One last thing, Dave.
Thank you. All right. Yes?
Yeah, as you can tell, this is a passionate subject, and it's great, and I don't say this gratuitously, it's great to have this. New Hampshire's electric rates are 46th out of 50. One would think that because our electricity prices in New Hampshire are so high, we'd be all over solar energy. We're not. Don't know why. I think I have a theory. Barry the other day said to us, and this is a good news, bad news situation. Good news for some people who don't want to go solar, bad news for people who do. The forward capacity market is signaling that we probably should get into contracts to go buy some more longer-term contracts, because our base load rate could actually go down some more. That is going to put downward pressure on solar adoption. I still come back to what I think we need to do in the master plan is we got to go find a way to get half of our energy from renewable resources. And I say, and Barry's got to figure this out, and he will, I think. What we got to figure out is, how do we ask the voter, here's a price for renewable energy credits, you can buy it. I got it, we're going to buy it from somebody out in someplace outside of the state of New England. Here it is, here's the price. If you want it, we'll put it on your bill. That way we start moving towards renewable energy coming into our town. I got the part about we're not generating it. But I can't fix the economics of the market. All I can fix is, I think we can fix is trying to create a way to get ourselves to the 50% objective. And so, again, for that reason, and one last thing. Current net metering policy, for those who don't know it, Barry buys power for 10 cents, roughly speaking. He sells it to us for 13 cents, roughly speaking. The 3 cents that's in between the 10 and 13, he uses to buy the trucks and trim the trees and keep us alive when the storms come. That 3 cents, plus it gives him a little extra money to pay into his fund so that he can build new stuff. In our current policy, we pay customers 14 cents. We buy it for 10, we sell it for 13, but a net metering customer today, we pay them 14 cents. That problem does not scale. And that basically says the more you buy in terms of net metering, the more MED pays. And I know that people don't like the S word, but it's a subsidy. And I think trying to adjust back to where we are and what Barry's trying to do in his policy, I think is rational. And I support what we're doing. So thank you for that. And thank you, Doug, for your passion. And yes, I did enjoy going to Sterling.
And I think Barry will tell you this in a minute. I think Mr. Stevens said it. We're paying the same retail rate, whether it's coming into our house or going out. We're not paying more.
We need you up on the mic if you're going to talk.
Gotta go to the microphone.
So I just, this subsidy that you're talking about, that we're actually getting a penny more than what we use or you use, that's not true. It's full retail. Whatever the retail is coming in is the same as what's going out. And you're talking about a subsidy. I kind of feel like, you know, looking at all the other values to this town, to other ratepayers of solar, what it does, I mean, you mentioned the capacity market. That helps in the capacity market. It doesn't help in demand, but if you connected solar to battery storage, which people are going to be doing, if they have solar, then it can help with demand. But you're not going to have that asset because you're squishing it today if you vote for this. You're not going to have these assets for the future. And we would be the only, I mean, you see, the co-op, they developed huge solar assets, and they're going to get their electricity for those solar assets at below what we're paying a New Jersey company to bring them here, if we ever developed them in this town. And once you develop them, the marginal price, the price that you pay to the future for producing that electricity, once you've done the upfront capital cost, is zero, because unlike natural gas, unlike coal, it doesn't require any fuel source that isn't free. And also the fuel source it does require, which is free, is non-polluting. So, you know, you're looking at the way to do this is not just by residential or commercial, but would also be to do a very large municipal level solar array. And you'd be locking in those rates for 20 or 25 years. You talk about we don't have any stability in our rates in the future. You're right, we currently don't. But whatever you do, once you've done that upfront cost, you will have stability over at least that portion of your electric usage for 20 years. So you'll get great stability out of it.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion? I think we've kicked this can down the road enough. Brad?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to get it on for discussion too and stuff here, that we adopt the municipal electric department net metering program that Barry proposed to us tonight.
Second.
That would be effective January 1 of 2020.
Correct.
Second again.
Any discussion?
I just had one thing to it. I mean, all this talk we've had about was about you know, the net metering and the reimbursement part of it. But one factor, I think, anyway, in the layman's terms, that wasn't really discussed at all, is that the folks that have the solar arrays on the house, stuff like that, are also saving money on their electric rate on the monthly bills that they get anyway, by the fact that they're not you know, buying the electricity to come into the house stuff. So there is another portion of this thing that we haven't really even talked about tonight, I think. So I just want to put that out there.
Any other discussion? All right, I'll call the motion. All those in favor of the motion to accept the municipal electric net metering program to be effective January 1 of 2020, say aye.
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 Abstain. Abstain.
Right. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Barry. Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda is the finance review expenditure reports. Never got that.
Did you get this?
No.
It's very well.
My phone. The thing I want to see is
Good evening. I'd like to run through my traditional expenditure ratio piece, and then I'd like to spend a little bit discussing where we are overall on a revenue as far as percentages, and give you some numbers based upon where we are in 2019 at this point in the year versus where we were in 2018 for revenue. So for the October 31st, 2019, where we were for the financial review of expenditures, the targeted budgeted funding rate is 83.333%. Keep in mind, again, that's using a straight line approach over the 12 months. The general fund was running at 88.546%. It's a negative variance of 5.213%. At the end of the September report, that was nearly 8%, and as predicted, the spending rate has slowed down. We had some large capital projects that that were paid out during the September and the beginning of October. And so we've seen that the rate shrink down, and we are looking for a nice soft landing. The water fund current expense rate is at 82.845%. So that's a favorable variance. Then we have the electric fund right now is at 58.4%. That's a very favorable variance of 24.933%. The sewer fund is at 89.295%, which is a negative variance of 5.962%. And then the Pop Whalen is at 73.865%, or a positive variance of 9.468%. As far as for revenue, overall, the general fund at this point has collected 94.82% of estimated revenues. The water fund is at 78.099%, with only the water residential charges area not beating estimated revenues at this point. The gap, though, is closing as they received, currently they're up to 76.907% of their estimated revenue for that line that we put in. The electric fund is at 80.62% of its estimated revenues. Once you back out the bond proceeds that were put on the estimated revenue report, but the goal was actually to bond the electric project in 2020. So once you make that adjustment, the sewer fund is at 66.008%. And the reason here is that the interest on investments is not posting to the GL as it's supposed to. So that will be looked to be resolved for the November report. Pop Whalen is currently at 42.434% of estimated revenues, and we had a break in the interface between the Max Galaxy software and to our Muni Smart, so that's being resolved as well, so we can bring that back into line. So what does all that mean on a on a dollar basis? We spouted off percentages. What does that actually mean when we compare 2019, where we were at the end of October, to where we were last year at this point? The general fund in 2018 at this point of the year had collected $18,755,762.98. At this point of the year, we've collected $19,601,165.02. That's a positive variance of $845,402.04. That's primarily attributable to property tax, with an increase in rate. The water fund is nearly flat. They had collected at this point $1,476,532.50 in 2018. In 2019, at this point, they're at $1,414,888.06. So they're $61,644.44 off. There's been more discussion about making sure that for water billing, that everything is being posting appropriately, specifically when it comes to actually the town department billing, that it's being recognized appropriately. The electric fund is unique, as in 2018 they collected $8,603,755.22. As of this point, they are at $8,153,592.24. It's a negative variance of $450,162.78. Pardon me. Though November and December, when you look them on a trending, those are some of their larger months where they're collecting their revenues. So we anticipate that their revenues will meet their estimated revenue projection, and we're looking actually for a positive variance over 2018's numbers. The sewer fund is at $1,532,508 as of October of 2018. In 2019, they're at $1,469,690.91. That's $62,817.09 off of 2018's pace. But when you calculate in what the interest on the investment is, that closes that gap within 25,000. So we also have a slight, where the pricing for the sewer billing, we should be able to close that gap. Pop Whalen, 2018 was at $151,109.81. Currently, at the end of October, they were at $119,812.87. And I don't have a read-in as far as what the amount is. It should be, that isn't posted in the GL right now. But you're looking at right now, it's a negative variance of $31,296.94. So on an overall, where we are versus 2018 and versus 2019, we are collected $239,480.59 more in revenue in 2019 at this juncture of the year than we did in 2018.
I have a few questions. On your report, on page 3, it shows no New Hampshire room and meals coming in. Does that come in once a year, or does it come in quarterly? I was surprised that we hadn't received any on that.
It typically comes in once a year.
Okay, and then you go down, and there's a federal HRSA health insurance refund, and it is $992,000. Is that a misprint? That's a huge amount of money, and nothing's come in. I'm wondering whether that's an error in there.
That I would have to take a look into.
Looks awful big for us not to have gotten anything.
Yep.
Those were the ones that kind of jumped out at me.
Any other questions for Troy? Thank you.
Thank you.
Troy?
Next on our agenda is the Wolfeboro Public Library construction update.
I'm Cindy Scott. I'm the library director, and this is a progress report on the library project, which has been underway now for over a year. We started a year ago in October, and we're excited to be reaching toward the end of the project at this point. So one of the issues that we're having right now with people using the library is they think because the exterior of the library pretty much looks completed that the library is completed, and they're astonished when they come in to discover how small the library is and what are we putting in the other part of the building. So we want people to continue to understand that we're now in the new part of the library, but the old part of the library is under renovation. We are still open. We're operating out of the smaller quarters temporarily, and we still are under our construction hours, which are Monday and Tuesday, 9:30 to 8, Wednesday, noon to 8, Thursday, 9:30 to 8. We're closed on Fridays, which has caused a lot of confusion with people as well, but we're open on Saturdays again, 9:30 to 5. They are still doing smelly, dirty, noisy things on Wednesday mornings and Fridays. That's when they specifically schedule them so that it's not as disturbing to library users, but we anticipate that we'll be coming to the end of that very soon. When you drive up to the library now, the new parking lot is in, and one of the most popular aspects of the new facility is the drive-up book drop there that you can see in the center of that picture. And the new entrance is where the old entrance used to be on the side of the building. When people enter the library, what they will find is a corridor, and the doors in that left-hand picture show you where in the future you'll go in and find the circulation desk. But for now, you have to take a sharp right turn, walk up the corridor with the restrooms, and get into the front part of the library. where we are operating out of. We are operating out of the portion that has the red line around it, and the rest of the building is under construction still. When we moved from the existing building into the front portion of the building, we had to move everything out of the other part of the library. Much of the collection was, some of it was moved out front, some of it was moved into storage, some of it's in boxes in the porch entry that we don't allow access to right now. And we had to use many volunteers to help us with this. They were invaluable, and we are going to need volunteers again in our next move, which is coming up shortly. We couldn't have done it without all the help that we had. In the new front part, we have the circulation desk temporarily out there. We have also moved all of the staff into the various offices and rooms along the north side of the building. The picture on the right is our local history and genealogy room, which in the future will be that. Right now, it's the staff office, and all of the staff. We have our staff meetings in there, we have our staff mailboxes, and we have 3 staff members working out of there. So everything that is in the library right now and available is going to have to move to its permanent location, as well as everything that's off-site is going to have to come back. So we have a big project ahead of us. We also have this temporary children's area, which we've kind of centralized on this little carpet that is in front of one of the offices. We had 30 people, adults and children, for toddler time about 2 weeks ago. So it was very crowded, and one person did ask us, you know, they thought that the library would be bigger than this. So that's why that's how come we know people are not really understanding what's going on. So there is going to be a completely separate children's room in the future. Now, behind the scenes, what we have going on is, you can see, we're still very much under construction. This is going to be the new meeting room space, and in fact, yesterday they got the light fixtures in this room, so they are making a lot of progress on this room. One reason why they're getting this room done as quickly as possible is so we can start to move things that are off-site back into this room as a staging area for the full move, and we hope next week to start to move some things back to the library. This is a view from the children's librarian's office looking into the new children's area, and the purple area over there on the right is going to be the new restroom for the children. And I think that when it gets all set up and the new furniture gets in it, that people are going to be very pleased with the space. We'll be able to close the room off if we need to, but initially we don't have the staff to have 2 circulation desks. So while we are going to have a circulation desk in there, and it is actually going to be the antique desk from Town Hall that we're having resized and refinished for the children's area, we won't be fully using it until sometime in the future when we actually have enough staff to staff 2 desks. So for now, everybody will come out into the next area here, which is, you can see the beams that you would recognize from the building before. Those will be staying, but behind where that blue toolbox is where the circulation desk is going to be, and we're looking toward the children's room right there. One of the things that we had to do while we were under construction is delete some of the services, and one was the book sale. So here you can see we have reinstituted the book sale in the entryway, which has been very popular. We also have started up the puzzle exchange, which is one of our popular programs. We advertised it on our Facebook page, and we actually had almost all the puzzles taken and not too many brought back. So if anybody has puzzles that have some, you know, all the pieces are there that you're happy to get rid of, we could use some more puzzles. But as we move into the next phase, which is going to be completing the project, we anticipate it'll be done by the end of the year. and we expect to close for 2.5 to 3 weeks in early January to move everything back onto the shelves. We're going to be getting some new furniture coming in the beginning of January. We are reusing a lot of the existing furniture, but of course it's a bigger space. So most of the new furniture is going into the children's area. That's our primary focus. But some of the adult furniture as well will be upgraded. And we expect to reopen the library on January 21st, 2020. But at this point, this is not cast in stone yet. We are still waiting to get the actual finished date from the construction company, but we are definitely getting close. And I'm very much looking forward to going back to being a librarian and hanging up my hard hat. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions?
No. Thank you, though. It's nice to get a presentation like
It's like you're getting close.
It's very close. It's finally going to be a reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is Libby Museum.
Thank you very much for giving us the time to talk about the Libby restoration and addition. And thank you to all the friends of the Libby who have shown up tonight in support of the project. What we're going to do is the architect is here, Phil, from Alba Architects, and we're going to have a detailed look at the plan. But before we do that and why they're getting the IT going, I'm just going to do a little bit of a run through as to where we are for those that are listening or listen to this in the future. So a brief background and context of recent events. So as was stated by Julie, people know that the Libby Museum has been under the stewardship of the town and specifically the Selectmen since 1956 when it was given to the town free of charge by probate court because the descendants of Dr. Libby could no longer manage it. It was given on the proviso that it be open every summer and that it remain a museum. So it's now 107, almost 108 years old, built from timber from Rattlesnake Island. It was felled from the island, and it has no heat and no insulation. It's uniquely ventilated from the lake through the crawl space and up hollow walls, and that's one of our challenges in terms of what we face now with the moisture problem. The Libby is, as Julie also mentioned earlier, the oldest and the only remaining natural history museum in New Hampshire. It makes it quite a special place. But things that people don't often know is that we also have a special link with the Smithsonian Museum Conservation Institute for artifact assessing, and we also are cleared by the Department of Interior to accept rare birds and mammals, and that's quite a unique position to be in. I can tell you that when I was recently offered a peregrine falcon and I called them up, I was surprised at being told that we have such high-level clearance for acceptance of items. That's good news because, as many of you know, we've been offered a very large North American collection from local resident, and we're also currently talking to Kari Lauber, who's here tonight, about the late Bruce Lauber's collection of mammals as well. Those are gifts that we hope to be able to accept. We've also had more recent offers of small collections of Lake Winnipesaukee fish and also of additional birds. The collection now is over 2,000 items. We have electronically inventorized it at long last, and it includes rare and irreplaceable items, including locally Governor Wentworth Mansion artifacts, which may be added to as well soon, a rare collection of Native American species, early maps of Wolfeboro, rare coins and currency, Daniel Pickering's certificate of shares for the Pavilion Hotel, an original with signature, and a life-size real moose, deer, bear, and hundreds of birds. It's been donated to by generations of people who still visit and ask for their collections. Every summer we have people that come in and say, do you have my grandfather's mink or bird? So it's quite an interesting challenge. We did apply recently for a grant from Dana Hamill, who's a summer resident in Tufton Neck, and he came in to see whether his fish were still on the wall. So that it's quite exciting when people through time actually do that. The building itself, people know, has challenges. It was originally, or most recently, fully assessed beginning in 2000. That was the first report that said restoration was going to be needed. We then went through the 2000s and had various things done. We had a building inspection done by Bergeron that led to the septic and plumbing improvements because they weren't code compliant, and it also recommended the improved tie rods, which went into place to help the bowing of the walls and the lack of shear bracing in the original design. In 2012 and 13, we had laser measuring to also determine whether the walls were still moving. In 2017, the Board of Selectmen generously approved Tyvek covers for the collection, so we have them safely covered from moisture as far as we can, and also installed improved fans in the hope, you'll remember, of reducing the moisture. Sadly, it hasn't worked. So the most recent engineering study that was done in June, after the warrant article was passed to look at the feasibility of restoration, made some important observations that I'd just like to summarize here. This is done by structural engineers. The walls are cracked and out of plumb. Under the floor concrete piers, spacing is too large, and some have settled. The crawl space is moist and causing mold and rot, and the southwest side of the exterior foundation is cracking. They concluded that it doesn't meet current New Hampshire codes for floor and roof snow loads, and the cracks and settling of the foundation indicate the building does not have adequate frost protection. Immediate action, some of which we did this summer, was cribbing under the existing floor beams, shims between the floor beams, and monitoring the wall movement. And I'm sure Phil will talk a little bit more about that. They said do not allow large groups in a single floor area. So we pumped the brakes, and we didn't have large groups in the museum after midsummer. The permanent repairs they were recommending was to reinforce the main floor, insulate the foundation, install ventilation and moisture control, install diagonal bracing, and reinforce the roof framing. So pretty significant recommendations by the structural engineers. So Alba Architects took it all forward, have done a great job designing what could save the current Libby building and also enable us to accept the generous donation of North American Mammals, which requires that we have temperature control to museum standard. So with that, I'll hand over to Phil, but just on a word of thanks to the Biber Foundation and the bequest of Betty Schroth, which allowed all of this work to happen over the course of several months since June. So over to Phil.
Thank you, Phil Bennett, Alba Architects. I'll just try to briefly summarize how we got here from the end of May. We were retained, as you all know, we were retained around the end of May and jumped straight in to do the assessment, conditions assessment and structural assessment of the building in preparation for feasibility study and then construction documents. We were tasked immediately with helping the director to prepare an LCHIP application, which involved putting a budget to it, the first of the budgets that you saw, and then subsequent to getting the L-chip application in, we moved into the feasibility study to satisfy the program that had been worked out for the existing building and additional spaces that would be required. And that was presented to you in August, I believe it was. Maybe it was. And then the next task was to prepare for another budget to give to the CIP, and which we did we have a CM on our team who prepared the budget for the CIP based on our early design development drawings, and that was presented to the CIP based on an in-house pricing by the CM. And then the next task was to further our design development and proceed into construction drawings, and then get a further price to you to review prior to putting on the warrant article, which we presented to you on the 6th of this month. In summary of the point of all this assessment, the supplement that we handed to you on November 6th was based on the full restoration of the existing facility with a modest addition to the north, sized in accordance with the minimum space required to achieve the goals of the project program. The project program included, or the work in that assessment, the supplement pricing included lifting the existing building to replace the foundation in its entirety. On three sides, the north elevation would remain, and then the introduction of a new foundation for a 60 by 20 two-story addition, followed by demolition of existing roof finishes, including the removal of asbestos shingles, upgrade of the existing roof structure, build the addition designed as an anchor to connect the existing building to, which would remedy a lot of the structural issues in conjunction with upgrading the existing structure. Design, build the addition, renovate all interior finishes of existing, replace windows, new roof, repair and redecorate the exterior. Construct a mezzanine with a footprint within the footprint of the existing structure, so that all the back of house spaces that were presently in the existing structure could be moved to the new addition, and thus creating an additional amount of space for display in the region of 40% more than what is there. It included a full replacement of all electrical systems to current life safety standards. It included introducing a new HVA system for a fully conditioned space, the minimum required to provide a museum standard space. Provide new plumbing systems compliant with the building code and accessibility standards, and provide a lift and accessible entries and egress routes to comply with accessible standards. As a small comparison of what the facility that the design and detailing that was presented in that supplemental report, the existing gross interior space of the facility was 4,442, of which 3,700 was available for display and reception areas. The proposed gross interior of the existing facility would be changed to 4,180 gross square feet. There's a reduction in the gross square feet because of the introduction of a new wall around the perimeter of the building to satisfy historic requirements. And then the addition of 1,150 square feet via the mezzanine to give, as I said, gives a 44% increase in display area. The new addition is on a two floors, a gross interior, 2,340 square feet, which would include mechanical display area, program space, office staff space, storage, as well as the storage for museum exhibit material, which is 456 square feet, which presently there is none within the building on site. And then there was a reconfiguration of the parking lot to provide 19 spaces on the north side of the building in conjunction with the existing 8 to 9 spaces, giving it approximately 27 to 29 spaces for the facility. And on our plan, we also, this third page, you'll see that there is also a sketch of a possible area that could be done at a later date or at the same time to provide replacement boat parking that would no longer be available in the new site plan on the top right corner there, which is still within the site. The site plan would be reconfigured so that you no longer enter at the very southeast corner of the parking area. You would enter in the middle of it, providing designated spaces, 19 spaces. I don't think you could fit 19 spaces within that parking area now, but it's effectively the same footprint. And that was one of the early concerns addressed in the proposals. So, as I mentioned, we've been, over the course of the various stages, we've presented 3 different budget prices. The first one being a 2.4 that was created for the L-chip application. And then the in-house budget, 2.4 million, sorry. And then the in-house budget created by the construction manager brought that down to 2.1 with some assumptions on that may or may not have been correct. And that was presented to the CIP. And then this third budget, which was put out to what they call single source bidding. It was given to a single subcontractor for each discipline, which is not exactly a bid format. Obviously, it's not going to be competitive, but it gives a better sense of construction costs. That brought the budget back up to 2.5 million, thereabouts. So, I don't know if you want to go through the supplement in detail, which you all have. I'll just go through some of the things, quickly try to go through some of the key items that we presented in that. The project goals, obviously, to preserve the existing facility and its contents. As Alana alluded to, there were significant condition issues and structural issues. The intention that at some point this would become a year-round usable space, whether it was open year-round or not, it still remains to be decided. But it would create a space that the contents and the building itself would not experience continued degradation through the elements, which it presently has obviously done for some years. Provide additional storage for the recent and the existing exhibit, the recent additions in the existing exhibit material. There is little to no on-site storage available in the existing facility, and certainly not within the building itself. There's a little bit in a shed in the back, but it's not exactly museum standard storage area. And provide additional and varied display space, so there's areas within the new and the existing portion of the building to be able to move exhibits around some areas and then have areas that are dedicated specifically to Dr. Libby's original material. and then create a self-sufficient facility, which effectively has little or certainly reduced cost to the town to run and maintain. I won't go through the page on some of these pages. I just want to skip through, as I said, the current construction budget as presented by Cobb Hill Construction, our CM consultant, put the full construction cost at $2,470,158. That obviously does not include some of the soft cost. And then we presented in this supplement the current 2019 running cost and comparison, as a comparison to get a sense of what the running costs would be for future years. We ran that on a small 2% increase in inflation, and then also included the additional running costs that would be incurred by these new systems, mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems. And you'll note that on page 4 of the document, being this number is for all of the HVAC mechanical running costs, plus lighting and electrics based on the current opening hours. So that number of 13,000 is not to have the building open year-round, but it's conditioned year-round. And to have it open year-round would only incur additional cost of lighting and electric use. So the full running cost increased from this past year of 43,000 up to 54,000 a year is our estimated running cost. And then we gave a comparison of it's obviously a difference of about $10,000 difference, and how that could be addressed with no additional revenue created by the building. And I can go into that detail if you want. I'll leave that up to you for questions afterwards. And then there was the list of the drawings. Included in that supplement was a start of the soft cost. There were some elements that we were not able to ascertain at the time of this, and I guess so we left those items unanswered. Some of those being if the town's portion of the construction cost was going to be financed, there'd obviously be some finance fees. We don't know if the town requires a clerk of works. If such, there would be some fees on that. The construction cost was listed there, but the Cobb Hill actually carried that in their estimates. Site security they carried, and then an owner's contingency. We didn't know whether the town has a policy on that. But without those items, the soft costs by our estimates would be around 125,000 range. And then finally, in the last portion of the supplement was the calculations for the electrical HVAC running cost for the year. And finally, I just wanted to make a few points about this last supplement. This supplement is based on somewhere between design development and construction drawings. It's not a completed, our construction documents aren't completed as yet. Our remit, our contract with the town is to provide a full set of construction documents, including specification, and a number that goes with that to present to the town. We weren't able to complete that element for this November 6th date, so we work through, as I said, the single source bidding pricing with the CM to get you this number. But the interim between now and March, we will continue to develop and finish our construction documents, and which obviously there will be a potential to work with the select board, the town, the director, to finalize and tighten up, revise these drawings as necessary. We certainly feel that we've not really given the town a lot of opportunity for feedback. Having said that, it was pretty much driven by the timeframes that we were working to. So we feel that this next period between now and March, we can certainly further these drawings. We will certainly further these drawings, would allow us additional time for interaction with the town and the director. And we would also like to just point out that the construction costs right now are very volatile, as I'm sure anybody who's experienced construction, they've been going up significantly, consistently. So the number that we've put in here could change between now and March. And we feel that, in our opinion, this is not necessarily the best number to go to the town vote with. I know you need to carry something in the warrant article at this stage, but we feel that there would be time to finish our construction documents, and actually go out to bid and get a real price, a number that a contractor could be held to, and that could be either added into the warrant article or presented as a finalized number, so the town knew what they were voting on. Again, that wasn't the original plan for our contract, but the opportunity is there if the town felt that would be beneficial. I think I've covered everything I wanted to on this supplement. If there's any questions on that you'd like to go through.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions on the Cobb Hill construction information, the exclusions. Fire alarm system, but I see they had an addendum on the next page for $7,000. And then period correct wood frame windows, winter conditions. Obviously, there's going to have some winter conditions at some point, I would guess. It's not all going to be able to be done in one summer.
Well, I guess it really does depend on the town vote, whether we could move in straight away. The Cobb Hill had estimated that they would finish this project in 9 to 10 months. I think that would be very aggressive, but they're the experts on that. If that were the case, the building would be wind and water tight before the winter conditions.
And then the generator, and then removal, storage, reinstallation of existing exhibits, and also professional services. It seems to me like those are going to be pretty large items as well.
Well, the two of
all
those,
the stuff's going to have to be stored somewhere.
Right. Two of those numbers are included in the soft cost sheet, that $125,000 that I mentioned. Okay. So I don't think that soft cost, we don't present that as a final figure because, as I said, there's a few elements that we weren't entirely sure what the town required. So we didn't. We did get a number for a clerk of works, and we thought that was extremely expensive. But if the town requires a clerk of works, then clearly that would have to be added into the mix. We only talked to one, but certainly their number was. Okay.
Those are a couple of questions I had. And percentage of increase, obviously, we don't know what that's going to be. We don't know what construction costs are going to do in the next year or year and a half.
Right. Most of the contractors that we're working with are stating that they're seeing 6 to 8% per year, and that obviously is compounded. And that's one of the reasons why we feel strongly that getting this material to a bid standard and actually going out to bid before the town vote. You're presenting the town with a real article, and whoever gave you that number has to be held to it, because obviously you got 90 days to decide. At this point, we couldn't get a number like that, because you'd pay extra to have them
How
hold
much
it.
longer before you'd have that kind of drawing?
We would anticipate being ready to go out to bid mid to end of January and having bids back by the end of February.
It's not going to work because we need it by deliberative session. That's our last shot at a price tag.
We won't have time to
At the
put a warrant
5th or
article.
6th, whatever it is, of February,
So,
is when we do the deliberative
February
session.
6th.
That's the last changes we make to warrant articles.
I think it's February 6th.
I looked down. It's the 5th.
5th.
It's, no, it's the 4th, because we do it on a Tuesday. So if it's the first Tuesday in February, it would be the 4th.
Yeah, a related question to that. Take the, whenever, we have to put this thing in front of the voters. Are you going to, or somebody going to be putting a little project chart together that kind of goes backward from that date and says things have to get done in sequence, so that we can all look at it and see where we are at any given point in time?
we certainly can, yeah.
Might be a good idea.
Yeah. And
It looks like you got a confluence of things going on here. Are you going to be planning to go to site plan review with the town for the property?
we were told that there was a minimal requirement for that, but I'm not entirely sure about that.
I looked at the plan, and I'm sure somebody's going to want to do a site plan review on it, not to slow things down, but it's on your critical path of just things you gotta do. Could I ask a couple of questions, Dave?
Sure.
On page 2, these are just kind of, as I read this, down at site works, it says these works could be carried out by the town to offer additional savings and construct. No sums were carried. Does that mean no sums were carried for the creation of the proposed? I'm not sure I know what that means. No sums.
Which item is that?
Page 2 of the writing. So you got prologue, preface, project goals.
All right.
Down at site works, it says no sums were carried. I'm sorry, I just don't know what that means.
What that means is that no sums are carried for the creation of the proposed new boat trailer park.
Right.
What does no sums mean? Just no money?
No money.
No money. That wasn't part of the
Not familiar
project.
with the term. Okay,
Right.
appreciate that. And when related to Dave's, I did ask the question about site plan review. If either it is or isn't on your critical path, might not be a bad idea to just check that out. On the exclusions, and I don't know, this will tell you how much I don't know about what's being built here. Will we require fire suppression? Is that what a fire alarm system is? No fire suppression?
No, the fire alarm system is simply the annunciator.
Just the
as a
annunciator?
control system. And they didn't carry it because, technically speaking, this building is sized such that a full fire alarm system isn't required. The town may decide that they just feel it's a good idea anyway, but...
Yeah.
I have
That would be a checkbox item, I would think, check that one, it's either in or out. So
Right.
on your site plan, we saw, the one we have, I see no reference lines for shoreline protection. I'm assuming that this is within 250 feet of the water.
It is, yeah.
So a portion of this would have to come under their purview.
Yes, there would be permitting involved, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and I think I have a question here in terms of this boat trailer parking. We don't have any figure, and I did talk to Dave Ford. We cannot have somebody back a trailer in across the road.
Yeah.
So that is not going to work. And as I recall, when I read that you were looking at the town doing the parking lot?
No, it's the cost in the budget includes for the parking lot to be done within the contract. It was just a suggestion.
Not this one.
That's not included in anything.
That's
That
not-
was only shown as a suggested
Now, are there
alternative.
trees up in here?
There are trees up there.
We're not only talking about putting in a parking lot there, but we're going to have to get rid of trees.
There would be clearing there.
And this, so in terms of the taxpayer, that's still a cost to them in this whole project.
Well, yes and no. That was put in there as a option should there be resistance to losing the boat trailers, but in the fact that we require the full space of the parking area to satisfy the zoning requirement for parking.
And I understand that, but this is one of our commercial docks where people put in, so boat trailer parking is significant here.
Understood.
So that if we're going to put this project through, we're going to have to include that.
Got to solve that problem.
Yeah, this has got to be solved and be part of the project because it will be a cost.
I didn't know they can't back in from the street.
I talked to Dave Ford and he said you're not supposed to back over a street like that. You know, we could check it.
Oh.
But, you know, you're backing in with a trailer.
That's another one of those, put it on your list of things you got to check.
I would too.
You can't design it, so they have to.
All right.
One of the things that I saw.
Right. I'm just to be clear, that wasn't one of the original. The finding a new location for the boat trailers was not really part of the original program.
Yeah.
We just threw that in there because we thought it was a wise idea to placate any concerns.
I think it came up. Didn't it come up in the CIP though? Wasn't that?
The discussion about boat parking did come up, but in my recollection, it was we need to provide the parking spaces for the facility.
I have no problem you doing it. I was intrigued by it.
Right.
But it is going to be a cost to the project because that's all I'm getting at is saying, okay, if it was open space, it would be one cost if we have to take down trees and something else. So that's why I asked, because I was trying to get some more information. I know that wasn't part of what you had to do, and I didn't mean to say that.
But it should be costed out because it's going to go in the warrant article.
Yeah, and we're going to have to get a number.
Yeah, we need a number.
Or a warrant, and we're going to need to know how much we're going to be asking the taxpayers for. What is that bond going to be? And then what is that bond payment due to the cost of the carrying charges? And that's one of the things that we as a Board of Selectmen need to get a handle on. And I don't know if we're going to get some more information on what we're looking for in terms of commitment from the town taxpayer.
Yeah, I could probably talk a little bit about that. We as a group of the Friends of Libby have been talking about fundraising. As you know, Alana's put out a lot of grant requests and stuff. We're waiting on quite a few of them. And we're hoping to have a pretty good number. Try to remember the dates we talked about well before, the February number anyway, but even, I remember what we talked about the other night, there was a December sometime, by the end of the year, we'd have a pretty good feel of a lot of the grant applications we have, and we'd be able to put together some numbers and projected what we anticipate for pledges and stuff like that to bring a realistic number to us here at the board level, so we could, work on a warrant article with a real number. And I know a large part of it too was with the Bieber Foundation on the grant that they're going to, give toward the project here. And the way I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, Alan, is going to be the 2/3 the cost of the new construction of the museum part, and not the renovation or the expansions portion of it. So we'd have to figure out what number, that number out of your budget number there, what numbers are for the expansion portion compared to the renovation, so we will know what that figure will be coming in on that grant that we're going to receive. So.
But if I could, back to the building, when this is done, we will have remedied, you will have remedied all of the things that we found in the 2000 assessment survey that said, you got to fix this building. All the things that we did in 2014 with the 200 grand when we put the turnbuckle, all that stuff, the assessment is the one I read, that big document. And, 20 years ago, it kind of said, warning, warning, warning. We're fixed. Is that, it's not a guarantee, but we're fixed.
That's certainly that was our remit.
And I don't know if it's not warrant article material, but I assume that there's some type of need to fund depreciation or have an asset management plan that says, we're fixed, but in the succeeding years, we need to have some sense of what we should be doing in terms of capital on the building or on the structure, or what capital investment. Will you guys be providing us a kind of a sneak peek of that, or? No, it wasn't in your remit.
It's certainly something we can discuss.
Well, one of the things we've been asking, all along is capital asset management plans, and it seems to me that we'll be making collectively a fairly substantial investment here. It needs capital to keep it going, otherwise stuff happens.
Right.
And I think it would be helpful at least for me, and I'm sure for the people of the town, to know what the investment stream is going to have to be as we go forward with this thing, to keep it in fixed condition.
Right, and we did make a start at that on the pages that compare the running cost with the revenue possibilities. And that was based on not having it continuing it as a 6-8 month facility, not including some of the programs that have already happened, and then not assuming that it's going to be a 15, 20, 25% increase in visitation. It was a very minimal change from the current, and with that, it shows that the cost to the town, with very little effort, doesn't change.
Yeah.
And that doesn't include the opportunities for longer opening hours, more programs. There is clear opportunities for further revenue generation.
Yeah.
We would be making a lot of assumptions to actually do that now. I think that would require feedback from the town on how they would want to phase that, what they might want to utilize, what types of revenue generation they might want to utilize.
And if I see that form that you gave on the number of visits and the amount, at some point this board should look at what happens if we raise the admission fee, and what do we gain by that to kind of offset some of the costs that we have going to have going on here. And we know we're going to have need an asset management plan. The thing that kept on running in my mind was, we do all this, Alana, don't we have a collection that also needs to be upgraded? Aren't we going to have a cost in terms of that from Dr. Libby?
Sure. There is always the ongoing cost of restoring items and preserving items. We are behind the 8 ball.
That's what I thought.
On preserving some of Dr. Libby's original gypsum plates, etc. But that said, there are substantial federal grants for such unique items if they are in conditioned space. We can't apply for them now because they wouldn't be preserved subsequently.
But I think the point that was made here, that
you're
now describing how you run a museum, not just running a budget. You know, it is preserving the collection. It is going out maybe to the Smithsonian or whatever and getting exhibits to come in. And all of that stuff, I think we met at some point and we talked, all that stuff costs operating money. But the fixing up of the exhibit and making sure that our exhibits are fixed is capital. And it's capital in addition to keeping the building, the windows glazed, the air conditioning system running, and all that
have
stuff.
historically fallen under the Friends of the Libby.
Well, how it gets paid for, a different discussion. But what I'm thinking about is let's articulate all the things that we need to get in, from a capital point of view, into fixed condition. A collection,
Sure.
continuing improvements, not improvements, a continuing operation of the building from a capital point of view. And that then becomes your rolling forward capital in addition to your startup capital.
Sure, I understand the need for that.
Yeah.
And that is part of what a sound business and asset management plan would contain.
Yeah.
And also
it's an additional exercise.
And we need that of the collection, I guess was where I'm going,
Yes.
is in, you know, if we go back, and I went through and I looked at the 2000 report and kind of went back in my own mind. Where did we go? How were we coming forward? And I found that the last real report I had was talking about how do we address an unheated facility. That's where we were in a town. It wasn't one of our critical assets at the time when everything was falling apart. So we did little things to help us along the way. So my feeling is it didn't fall down. And it really was the collection, the North American collection, that pushed us to start thinking about something larger and a totally heated facility. I support Wolfeboro being a museum town. I supported the feasibility study. I understand we started with one architect, brought in another, and that you've done an excellent job for us coming in late and trying to put all this material together. But we do have a timeline, and we're going to have to, if this goes forward, to sell it to the public. Yep. We're going to need all our pieces in line, and I don't feel I have them quite yet. And concerned about the moisture on the exhibits. That was back in 2000, where there was a real clear report about problems there. I'm into looking at raising the visitor to raise some more money, where I'd like to get a figure on how we're going to address trailers, because that is a commercial spot. And then I'm concerned about how much we have to borrow and whether we can sell that, and I don't have a handle at all. I'm kind of looking, as I look at all this, that we're looking about 2.7 million. And how much are we going to have, and what are we going to be asking the taxpayer for, and what is that going to add to the budget? And that's kind of where I am on it. I love the Libby. I went there as a child, my kids did, and everything else. I support the effort, but I think it's going to come down to whether it is something that the taxpayers are willing to pay for. Yep. And we're going to just have to try to net that out as a board. So, the sooner we have a price, sooner we know what money we have, then we can start looking at what the real cost is going to be. That's where I am.
Also, Alana, I mentioned to you before, I think it might be a good idea, P.T. Barnum, part of me speaking, to have a pass for Wolfeboro residents at X number of dollars per year, and then they can come with up to 2 or 3 family members, and that way anyone who has people in will say, hey, let's go to the Libby, you know, which they might not do at $7 each or whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do actually have a membership that allows for family entry.
You do that, okay.
Alan?
Past my bedtime.
12 hours, too.
Whenever we make grants, we treat them as investments. And it's our investments in the portfolio that we have for the foundation, which allows us to do this. Reading one of the reports here under project goals, preservation of existing facility and contents. The current condition of the Libby Museum presents a potential loss of both the building and its contents due to a number of factors, as described in the existing conditions assessment. Did you all see that? Mm-hmm. What do you think about that statement? Could I have some feedback on that?
Well,
David?
Yeah. I worked on that building many years ago, and it hasn't been kept up at all in recent years. Same with the exhibits and everything else. And I think it's an asset and it's something that we need to bring up to speed. And I'm not opposed at this point with not backing the program, certainly.
With what?
I'm in favor of backing the program to make it year-round, to condition the building and the exhibits, because some of that stuff is not replaceable.
You got the point.
Yeah. That's what you're looking for.
If you look at this from the big picture, and you believe the statement that's made here, and I do, and I think you're corroborating the statement yourself, the place is a wreck, and it's not going to last. So that's why we have this agreement that you signed back in June that sets timelines to establish numbers that we need from the foundation's point of view and the town's point of view. There's two partners here, us and you, taxpayers. There's two parts to this. There's the expansion and there's the renovation. We're dealing with the expansion. Now, the expansion is essential to the success of the renovation because it houses the HVAC system, providing an atmosphere which is needed, which is not there now, for the exhibits. And the exhibits are going to explode when the what happened?
All the utilities.
You didn't pay your electric bill.
Correct.
We don't have enough solar power on the building.
Yeah, right. It's moon power. The one is dependent upon the other. Now, the donors of the 200 exhibits, they don't want their collection put in a cold storage. It's not going to happen.
Yep.
And this is an integral part of the growth factor involved in this museum complex. Plus, I think Bruce Lauber was a friend of yours, wasn't he?
Yes.
You went hunting with him in Wyoming, I guess it was?
No, I didn't go out west.
You didn't do it?
Around here, yeah.
Okay. Whatever. But why would somebody want to put a cherished collection in a freezer? It doesn't make any sense. Now, in terms of a business plan, it would seem to me that if, and this is why I'm interested in this, you've got all sorts of capabilities. We do the expansion, you do the restoration, the exhibits come in, so you raise the prices. It's going to be worth the price of entry. You're right.
Yeah.
Now, one of the most famous and most highly visited museums in the world is the New York City Natural History Museum. We have the only natural history museum in New Hampshire. And we have the means, if we can just get this whole thing together, to present a museum, part of the museum town, that is a winner. We see it as a winner. And we're pretty good at investments. That's our gig. Now, in the agreement that was signed, what is it, paragraph 4 here. Excuse me, it's 5. Upon completion of the said study, the town shall additionally generate and provide to the signatories herein on or before January 6th, preliminary projection of the increase in annual operating costs and expenses associated with the expansion of the Libby Museum, as well as a plan for how said costs and expenses will be covered in the future. So you guys got to do that. We need that. That's part of this agreement. We can't do it for you. We did made a grant to the architects, and they've come up with some numbers here. Maybe we have to push them a little harder to get numbers that you need in order to comply with your part of the agreement. Now, we're flexible. If we need to make a change in the dates, I don't want to go out 5 years or 10 years. This is crazy. We're talking about weeks. And anything can get done if you want to do it, if the end result is what you believe it should be.
I think what you heard from Linda and Paul was a date of February 4th. And within that frame, which we had just talked about recently, was that you need to know, obviously for your part of it, what the addition to the museum is going to cost, what the HVAC, all of that parts of it that you would be responsible for. We need to know that figure as well so we can deduct that from the total cost. And I think that's what Linda was pushing towards, to have that number so we can have a warrant article. We have to raise all the money first. So if it's $2.5 million or 2.7, whatever that number is, and your deduction is, pick a number, $1.5 million of that, then the taxpayers are only going to have to raise the other 1 point, whatever it is. And that's going to be easier for us to sell as a board, or the town to sell to the public, if they know what those delineation numbers are. It's going to be a whole lot easier for us to figure out whether we bond it for 5 years or 10 years, or maybe we just pay for it.
Who's going to figure that out?
Well, that's what we just heard. The architect was going to put some more numbers together, and if he separates it out, he can give you a number that you would have that you can then apply your percentages to.
All right.
And the other...
That's what I heard. Is that what I've... You said that you could probably have the numbers by then?
Well, I think we're confusing a couple of things together. We had talked about actually going out to bid and whether that was feasible before the February 6th.
I don't see that being feasible.
Well, I mean, we'll certainly look at it if it's something you want to pursue, but if you don't feel that's necessary, then we'll. But we certainly can break down the costs that we've already given you to show what can be apportioned to the expansion versus the renovation.
And we need that.
And that's what Alan needs.
That's what...
Right.
For his people.
But that would be
and we
based
need
on
it, so if we have a total, like I said, 2.7, and Alan's going to pay for $2 million of it,
getting bigger every time.
And
It keeps raising.
but whatever that number is, we subtract that, so then we have a net cost of this to the taxpayer.
And,
Right.
Approximate. I mean, you know.
and the other thing that we need is we're going to have to start selling it now to the taxpayer. And when you don't know what you're dealing with, it's a lot harder to sell.
What do you mean sell?
To give them the information about it, to inform them, to get them excited about coming out to vote and understanding what we're talking about here. And it takes a while to do that. And we do a presentation in January. We're going to do the warrant articles, start discussing them next month. We do a presentation usually the middle of January. We go to the deliberative session. We better have our, what I'll call our dog and pony show, all set together and have the money and start really saying and be able to say some of the things you were saying, why this is such an important investment, because that's how we get a warrant article passed.
Do you think this is a good investment?
I'm willing to take a shot at it, but I need to know, well, what I really need to know is what you're asking the taxpayer to come up with.
I understand that.
That's the thing.
I'm a taxpayer too. I understand what you're saying.
Okay, that's where I am.
That's part of the business.
Yep.
Now,
What we need to sell it, Alan, is this site plan. You know, what's it going to look like?
so who's going to be directing the traffic here.
Board of Selectmen usually puts the presentation together with the staff. And I'll look very heavily to Alana on, what pictures we may want to use or how we want to explain why we're moving in the direction that we're moving in. I definitely would like to talk to the board about raising the price of admission to get some more revenue. I'd like to say offset.
If it's open year-round, I mean, that's a good possibility, but.
I think the newspaper will be important too, because there are a number of dissidents that don't like almost anything. And I think if it's done positively, and some of the town leaders endorse it with letters to the editor, that'll help a lot.
You know something? I'm not worried about that at all. I went through the library, too. I was with them for 10 years. So I know how this game is played. Not to say it's a game, but the play, or how the play unfolds. So if you can't adhere to this January 6th date, we're flexible on this. But I'd like to see some forward motion here, working with the architects to come up with the necessary terms of this agreement.
Well, that's what I think that Brad was saying, that the Friends of the Libby, along with these people here, are trying to move that forward quickly. We have more information here than we've had for some time. There are some questions which you heard us bring up. Each one of us have. So some of those need to be answered. I think they're simple. Mm-hmm. But you're going to come up with a total cost, then you're going to back out from that, or somebody does. The architects need to divide this building up and say, okay, Alan, you're responsible for this much of the building, and it's going to cost this much money. And then you say, okay, that's fine, we'll agree to that. But then the rest of the renovations and demolition and whatever it is, and site work is up to us to put a warrant article together to explain that part of it versus your part.
Okay.
It's pretty simple to me, but we don't have all that information yet.
I know you don't.
We don't. So if we can get something in a very quick time frame, we can act on it very quickly.
I like to hear that.
Yeah, I think we can. We're all in agreement that, I believe we all are, at least anything that I've heard discussed with the board members, that we're in favor of this. We don't want to lose the building. I mean, it's crazy to have us lose that building at this point. Doesn't make any sense.
You said crazy, didn't you? You said crazy?
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous to me.
That's one of my favorite words.
For all of us for the town to bail out on this thing. I just think it's not necessary. But we need some solid numbers, as Linda said, so we can sell it.
Yeah, okay. That's why it's in here in the way it is chronologically.
That's
and what I'm saying chronologically, if it doesn't work for a week or 2 or 3, we're
got
flexible.
a lot of information right here tonight.
Amen.
That we got this week, and obviously, not obviously, but I think most of us have looked through it and had questions, which you heard. And so I think that we want to back this thing, but it's got to get moving.
Anybody have any questions for me?
No, I don't.
We want this to work.
Yeah.
Believe me.
We
I
want
want
it
to go to
work.
bed.
Your group is certainly a beneficiary to us if we get this thing together.
It's a win-win.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
It is late. Hi, Lauren Hammond. I was the director for a few years ago at the Libby Museum. Just a couple things. This whole project that we're from November 1st onward, Alana is not being paid to do any of this. And with such an extensive project, I don't know how we can resolve that at all, but she's written grants. I have probably 12 emails a day coming in from her, and all the work, yeah. So the Friends are happy to do whatever we can, but I'll tell you, without her leadership, we wouldn't be where we are. We're working very hard to raise some money, and I just wanted to make that little notice to the selectmen. And on another note, since 1956, not a lot has been done. So the 2.7 million, you know, it's been since 1956. So, thank you.
Okay, does anybody have any more questions about this? I think we know where we need to go and some time frames here we need to deal with. Any other questions?
Oh, I'm done.
Thank you all for your time and efforts.
Go up.
I don't know, I don't think we,
I think how I picture it is we will, in the next month, start drawing up warrant articles and trying to put this together. And then at some point, we'll vote on whether we want to move forward with the warrant article. But I don't have the...
you want that vote, I'll make a motion that we continue on with the exploring of the Libby Museum.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is that enough?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And you want it as a written letter? Okay.
We can do that.
Dave, I just think the one thing for me that I think comports with what we're all saying would be within a very close in period of time that we have a project plan. Whatever the date is that we want to get this, because we're going to need some slack time to evaluate. Whatever that date is, we just go backwards and we just pencil in the things that need to be done, and that way we know whether we're on plan, off plan, and whether we're wandering in the woods. And I think that would be extremely helpful for all of us, because then we can sit down, episodically here as a board with you and everybody, and we can go, we're on plan, we're off plan. We have a critical date here. We need to put more resource on a certain item or issue. And I think that would be my ask of the team would be, can we get that whatever ASAP is defined as quickly as possible. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on our agenda is other business. Does anybody have any other business other than myself?
You have any other business? Any monkey business?
No, I don't.
Okay. We're going to have a committee change as far as representative to the police commission. I'm going to take over the duties as a liaison to the police commission, and that will start tomorrow. Okay, committee reports. Linda, you want to start?
Sure. I attended an EDC meeting on Tuesday. The chief of police came in at the request of the EDC and talked to us about parking and the parking issues that we were having in town. He did a nice presentation. He talked to us about having kiosk meters as one of our options. He also informed us that there have been court cases that have gone to state Supreme Courts that no longer let you mark tires.
Right.
So
more chalking of time.
my hope was that we would, after we get through the warrant articles, to have a parking committee to really take a look at parking issues in the town, whether we want to meter anywheres, what areas do we need to leave, like in front of the post office. You're not going to want to meter in front of the post office, or we'll get hung. But the question was whether you wanted to do any metering down at Dockside, whether you don't want to do metering at all. Kathy Eaton, the owner of Molly the Trolley, has just bought a second trolley. She's working on getting the parking lot up at the Art Center and run a trolley down into the town every half hour, which will be our first kind of public transportation coming down into the downtown hoping to keep more cars out of the downtown, help us deal with energy, and so that was exciting. It was a good meeting. It was a long meeting. We had an Energy Committee meeting. We have a lot of members who are going off the Energy Committee and new members coming on, and we're getting a work plan based on the master plan, and we're looking at getting subcommittees to get some of that work done. The Special Events Committee of the EDC has been meeting. We've got our flyer out for last night, Wolfeboro. We're going to have the same 10 to 2 where there are going to be games and activities up here in the Great Hall. The Kingswood Youth Center is going to provide the food. We're going to have the Freeze Brothers Big Band combo over at the Congregational Church. We're going to have a family game show with prizes. We're going to do a sing-along. That's going to be funded by the Senior Center. We're going to have a magician, a different one from last year. We're going to have bingo, wildlife encounters, and contra dancing at night, and the Chamber is going to put on fireworks. And I've got to thank all the sponsors. We've had a great support from the business community. Julie is one of them, Blacksmith Printing. She's going to make our banners for us. So we're really pleased with the support that we've gotten in the community. So we're hoping to see everybody at last night. I went to the Chamber board meeting, and I've joined Paul for a number of budget committee meetings.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I have.
David?
I had a library committee meeting. I may have reported on that last time. I'm helping 2 people write books on the history, on niches in the history of Wolfeboro, and they're doing a few other things.
Okay, so far, I've not had any meetings.
Yeah, last night we had a planning board meeting. The public hearing we had was for, I believe they call it the Pavilion, which is the building on the other side of Pickering House from here, that the cooks are going to redo. They're going to put in a restaurant, some office spaces, some apartments, and 4 motel units in there and stuff. So that's going to be nice to see another project and another building get restored right in, in a quarter coming into town here. It'll be very nice. And then last week also we had our Friends of Libby Museum meeting. The bulk of the meeting was probably speaking about fundraising and stuff like that for the project that we heard about a lot and had a lot of conversation on tonight. And that was it for me. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend the community TV meeting they had this morning, but they survived. They went on without me, so.
Yeah, it's been budget season, and I would say that the meetings with our department leaders have been almost outstanding, and I think in large part thanks to Jim Pineo's leadership. Just about every one of our departments has received, as a result of their work, applause from the members of the Budget Committee. I've taken pictures of that. I remark at the depth of knowledge that people have in our town about their assets, their operations, and just their ability to answer. And the Budget Committee, does ask direct and tough questions, but just their ability to answer. And I won't try to go through all of them, but Parks and Rec, unbelievably good. Electric, unbelievably good. Just really high-quality stuff. And I think hopefully the voters will be pleased in large part by what they see. I went to a Carroll County broadband meeting last week up in Moultonboro, and I've invited the next meeting to be here on December 12th. So it'll be right here at 10 in the morning. And these are all the members of the select boards from around our county. And what's going on is we're trying to get our arms around how to get some funds more in the outer parts of our county for potentially overbuilding for broadband access. As I said before, we're very lucky. They have, those other towns have some very serious challenges about broadband coverage. I was going to make a few announcements on some other things concerning broadband, but I'm going to wait until our next meeting to do that. So that's my report.
Our managers.
First of all, thank you for the kind words, Paul. The department heads have done a phenomenal job in working through their budgets, through a new process, and delivering to myself, to the Board of Selectmen, and to the Budget Committee, and I think it's resulted in them knowing their budgets inside and out, and being able to deliver a fantastic product to each committee. First topic is the employee holiday party is scheduled for December 6th. That's going to be at the Cider Press. You should be receiving announcements about that shortly. The town offices, we are looking to get the blessing of the Board of Selectmen, but we are thinking that it probably makes the most sense to close at noontime on New Year's Eve with all the activities that go on. So we're, without any objection from the Board of Selectmen, non-critical services at noontime will shut down. Amy's informed me that we should probably move the January Board of Selectmen's meetings to the 8th and the 22nd, based on New Year's. So if the board has no objections with that,
I don't.
we'll get those rescheduled and posted that way.
I don't know why you don't want to come here the first.
Exactly. With you.
And lastly, I have the distinct honor this evening of announcing to the public our new fire chief. Our new fire chief's name is Norm Scanzi. Norm has been fire chief in the town of Gilmington. He's been fire chief in the town of Bristol, and most currently he's been the fire chief in Swansea. He'll be taking over the reins as fire chief in the town of Wolfeboro on the 27th. And Norm, if you could come up and introduce yourself, please.
Well, hello. I'm very pleased to be here, and I appreciate vote of confidence by our town manager. And it was a very detailed process, hiring process, and I know that I have some pretty large shoes to fill. Looking forward to starting on the 27th.
Thank you.
Welcome, and
thank you.
It's great to have you.
Certainly feel free to reach out to me when I arrive here. I'm happy to meet with any of you anytime to discuss the issues of emergency management or the fire department.
And the Board of Selectmen is always available to you.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, we're available whenever you need us.
Appreciate that.
Bring coffee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Norm.
Thanks, Norm.
Okay, any questions from the press? No?
She left. It's got so late.
Press left.
Any public input? Anybody want to talk to us tonight? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice meeting, Chair.
Yeah.